My name is Bill. And I fly private. And so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can. Now enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled.
Man, Bill Maher just obliterated the hypocrisy of your beloved Hollywood saints, and it was nothing short of comedic perfection. I've said it 100 times, never put blind faith in these woke celebrities. Their moral double standards could make Lucifer himself blush. From George Clooney's virtue-signaling politics to Bernie Sanders' millionaire revolution routine, Maher went scorched earth on the whole crowd. No filters, no mercy, just pure, uncut truth bombs. And honestly, it was about damn time. Let's unpack the wreckage.
Humans are not good people. It's just not in us, including me. And I'm tired of living well, not a lie, but it's also something I never mention, but it's a new year, and I'd like to come clean. My name is Bill. And I fly private. And so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can.
Maher started by admitting he's a big supporter of protecting the planet. But here's the kicker, he flies private. That right there is the perfect snapshot of Hollywood's green hypocrisy. These self-righteous stars never miss a chance to lecture everyone else about carbon footprints while logging more air miles than a political campaign. They've got all the right slogans, the fashionable talking points, and the climate stats memorized like it's part of their next role. But when it comes to actually practicing what they preach, nothing but silence. It's activism as performance art, all for applause, not progress. And for once, Maher called them out exactly as they deserved.
Now enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled.
That's exactly why I can't take these celebrities seriously beyond their movie roles. Most of them collect massive paychecks to push their so-called save the planet agendas. It's marketing, not conviction. Even the ones who swear they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, come on. It's all image management, a performance of humility while they live lives dripping with luxury. This isn't about protecting the planet, it's about protecting their public persona. The private jets, sprawling mansions, and fleets of luxury cars are all neatly wrapped in the language of raising awareness. And then there's Bernie Sanders, Mr. Man of the people, looking perfectly at home, rubbing elbows with Hollywood's elite.
All the environmentalists of Hollywood and Washington do it. Their position on climate change is, we must do more to stop pouring carbon into the air, except for me when I want to go somewhere and then I take a private.
What's funny is that most of the celebrities Maher went after are the same ones who proudly pledged their loyalty to Kamala Harris or eagerly jumped on her campaign bandwagon. They're hardcore Democrats, and topping that party's agenda is always the crusade to save the planet. For 2 decades, we've heard the same sermon, award show speeches, red carpet interviews, and social media rants, all preaching about living greener lives. But after all that noise, what's really changed? Nothing of substance. The climate isn't better, emissions haven't fallen, and their own carbon footprints have only grown. Why? Because it's all for show hollow words and carefully crafted PR designed to sound virtuous. They're addicted to applause, not accountability. They champion causes they barely grasp, then slip right back into their fuel-burning luxury lives without a second thought.
It turns out there is one thing in this world that is completely impossible to resist, and this is it. It's like heroin. If you do it once, you'll never stop. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who fly private and those who would if they could.
Bill Maher is just calling it like it is, and honestly, I'm right there with him. If I had the chance to fly private, I'd take it in a heartbeat. Who wouldn't? It's faster, easier, and saves you from the circus that is commercial travel. No endless security checks, no flight delays, no cramped seats with zero legroom, and definitely no flavorless in-flight meals pretending to be food. Flying commercial these days feels like survival, not travel. Flying private is the opposite: comfort, calm, and control all in one. You decide when to leave, stretch out like a human being, and actually enjoy the trip instead of enduring it. Maher's point isn't that flying private makes you a villain, it's that acting morally superior while doing it is where the real hypocrisy lives.
A third category, those who could but do not, does not exist. Except for Ed Begley and Greta Thunberg. And that's why you never see a picture of her smiling. Ed and Greta, that's who walks the walk. Everyone else is full of and I'm done being full of
I've got my own doubts about Greta Thunberg, to be honest. At times, her activism comes off as more staged than sincere, like she's performing a role rather than leading a movement. But to give credit where it's due, on this point, I'm with Maher. Unlike the Hollywood crowd that preaches about saving the planet while hopping from jet to jet, Greta actually lives by the values she promotes. She doesn't just talk the talk, she walks it, literally. Whether it's taking trains or sailing across oceans to avoid flying, she stays true to her message, something most of these eco-conscious celebrities can't claim. She could easily choose comfort and convenience, but instead, she picks the harder, more disciplined path. Love her or not, at least Greta has the integrity to live by the same environmental standards she demands from others.
I can take being a bad environmentalist because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite. Now, I always justified renting a plane because I only used it for work and literally could not get to most of my stand-up gigs on time any other way. How do you think I did it all those years? I said goodnight here at 8 p.m. and was on stage in Vegas at 10. But I don't need to do stand-up, like tomorrow night in Albuquerque.
Sadly, that's exactly what the Democratic Party has turned into, a showcase of wokeness and hypocrisy. They love to posture as the nation's moral authority, preaching grand ideals and virtue from every podium. But pull back the curtain, and it's all an illusion. They'll go to battle for causes they barely care about, not out of principle, but for clout and applause from Hollywood and the press. It's no longer about genuine conviction, it's all about image. Every line is rehearsed, every statement filtered to perfection, carefully crafted to offend no one. They tiptoe through every issue, paralyzed by the fear of being called insensitive or out of touch. In chasing political correctness, they've lost their authenticity entirely. Instead of standing for truth or substance, they chase trends, a party of catchphrases and hashtags, not real leadership.
And outside of heads of state, almost everyone else could fly commercial. Why don't they? Ask anyone who tried to get home for Christmas last year. And don't tell me the younger generation is better. They're not. They're just poorer. They're actually worse. This is who they look up to. The family where everyone has their own private jet. And kids love Bitcoin, which, to determine the value of, takes an amount of computer processing that uses more electricity than some whole countries. Kids could have rejected that, but they didn't. They love it. Why? Because they want to be rich. Why? So they can fly private.
Maher then shifted his focus to the younger wing of the Democratic Party, and he didn't pull any punches. He called out the irony that, despite being the most environmentally educated generation in history, they're making the same blunders as the ones before them. These young Democrats have attended every climate summit, signed every petition, and marched in every protest imaginable. Yet, as Maher wittily pointed out, their so-called environmental passion isn't driven by moral conviction, it's driven by circumstance. They care because they're broke. It's easy to stay eco-friendly when you can't afford a private jet or a mansion cooled by a dozen air conditioners. Maher's take was cuttingly honest. Give this same crowd the wealth and privilege of the elites they condemn, and they'd be just as indulgent, maybe even worse. Their activism, he suggested, might not be righteousness. It might just be poverty disguised as principle.
No one can resist it. John Kerry is our climate czar, and he uses a private jet. People take jets to environmental conferences. If you could run TED Talks on hypocrisy, you wouldn't need coal.
Maher kept landing one truth bomb after another on the DNC, and this one really struck a nerve. John Kerry, the man serving as the U.S. presidential envoy for climate change, was caught flying on a private jet, and not before his appointment, but after. That's what makes it even more absurd. You can't claim to lead the charge against global warming while soaring around in a fuel-guzzling private plane. It destroys any shred of credibility. Maher's point couldn't have been clearer. You can't preach virtue while living in contradiction. The hypocrisy is staggering. These are the same figures lecturing everyday Americans about cutting their carbon footprint while burning through more jet fuel in a week than most households do in an entire year. That's not leadership, it's hypocrisy dressed up in designer suits and political self-righteousness.
But sorry, not sorry. I tried to do my part for the environment. I never had kids. The one thing worse for the planet than private jets. It's true, because then they have kids. I had the first generation Prius in 2001. It looked like a Tylenol gel cap. I was always handing my keys to valets who were driving a better car than me. I had the first Tesla in 2010, and honestly, both these cars sucked. The Tesla came up to about here on me. If I had a hard-on, I couldn't fit in this thing.
The rest of Maher's rant slid into a blend of self-awareness and self-congratulation classic Maher. He started patting himself on the back for doing his part to help the planet, proudly noting that he drives a Tesla and genuinely wishing more people would do the same. But, as he admitted, that didn't exactly happen. In fact, it backfired. The more people learned about electric cars, the more reasons they found to stick with gas-powered ones. Between the steep prices, the hassle of finding charging stations, the problem of battery disposal, and the reality that most electricity still comes from fossil fuels, the whole situation practically mocks itself. Maher, in his trademark sarcastic style, pointed out that the Green Revolution hasn't turned into the sweeping movement many expected. Instead, it's become yet another case of good intentions colliding with inconvenient truths, where the performance of virtue once again outpaces the practice of it.
But both times I said to myself, okay, I'll take one for the team, because I have a platform, so I'll do the right thing, and then everybody will follow, people will... Nobody followed. In 2021, 80% of new vehicles weren't electric, weren't even hybrid. They weren't even cars. They were SUVs and trucks. That's what people want. In 1973, the share of global electricity generated by coal was 38%. You know what it was 46 years later in 2019, after all the talk and all the trying? 37%. You know what percentage of plastic gets recycled? 5%. Those blue bins that are everywhere, they're not full of bottles, they're full of
Humans really are a paradoxical bunch. We love to sound noble, love to project virtue, love to pretend we care. But when it comes time to actually live by those ideals, most of us fall short. Convenience almost always beats conscience. We'll post hashtags about saving the earth, then catch a flight for a quick weekend escape. We'll rant about pollution, then cruise around alone in gas-guzzling SUVs. That's why the global fight against climate change keeps spinning its wheels. The problem isn't ignorance, it's apathy. Everyone says they want change, but few are willing to change themselves. And that's the hypocrisy Maher called out so perfectly. He simply held up a mirror, and the reflection wasn't flattering. Hollywood stars, politicians, activists, they all love to preach virtue while living contradictions. Until people start aligning their actions with their words, the battle against hypocrisy and climate change will stay stuck in empty speeches and staged sincerity. That's it for today's breakdown. If you liked this take, hit the like button and subscribe for more unapologetic commentary like this.